Hi guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please hit that like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work, connect the dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are in the description box below. And if you would like any one of my fun pieces, pyramids with different types of gems, scullies, business card holders. Some of them have gems in them. That's pyrite. It looks green. It's pyrite. And all my other fun creations and paintings, just like those over there. Check out my website, AllyKatzkreations211.com. It's also linked on my channel if you're interested in any artwork. Hi, everybody. I had a very productive morning. Thor decided, I'm going to shoot some lightning 10 feet away from you and see if you can handle the ampage. Holy shit. I'm here. I'm survived. That was just really interesting this morning. I've been close to being struck a few times in New York, actually lifeguarding outdoors. I used to do community pools, so you know, I've been close, but I have yet to have that happen here in Indiana. Now, yep, mark that, check that off on my list. You know, walking the girls to the bus stop and then walking back, and yeah, that was great. That was a trip. So that was my morning. I had a interesting afternoon of making candles and other things, and looking at the time, I'm like, okay, I gotta get a reading done before the rest of my day hits. Beyond Good and Evil. I urge you all, I'm going to get a link for my TikTok videos. I've been sharing those out, making once every couple of days. I've been making them whenever I feel compelled to. Upstairs is guiding me on that. What's interesting is, before I begin this, Dolores Cannon, I read, one or two of her books, and I skimmed through a couple of the other ones because I have a lot of books to read. She's been saying the same thing I've been saying, just a little different in wording, but pretty much the same thing. And Bashar, I found some good ones. I've been listening to Bashar, the guy who does Bashar, for a while now. The same thing with Brian Scott. He's the one that really introduces Quo to everybody in Raw and the Law of One. That stuff is not easily readily out there by people who are just unbiased and just have an expanded mind to give it to you straight without judgment and without their own spin. They're just reading it, and then after the fact, they'll put their 2 cents in. Interestingly enough, they all have the similar things that I've been saying, and I have just been introduced to a lot of these videos and content. So it's not like it was sitting in subconsciously or unconsciously, or I'm copying people. It's really authentically coming out of my mouth. So what concept brought me to start TikTok is we need to seed each other. We need to be the lighthouses, not only for people that need the seeding, but for other people who are aware, in the awareness, because there's a lot of misinformation going on. And it's not necessarily or it's just not it's interpreted, and everybody perceives reality differently. But we got someone like myself, I'm very careful, and not all the time, to make sure that people understand this is my perception of reality. Yours might be different, and that's okay. People tend to hold on to, latch onto other people's words and make it holier than thou. And I feel like we need to stop doing that. You need to go inside yourself. I walk my walk, I walk my authenticity, I embody what I say as I do it. I practice what I preach. For the most part, I'm flawed like everybody else. But I really am out there trying to put the right intention out into the universe so that we can shift this bitch and get people thinking what's gone right, and let's move that forward, instead of being stuck in this complacency of this is all wrong, everybody fucked up, everybody's bad, and we keep focusing on this distraction, distraction, distraction. And not to say human suffering isn't distracting, it is, because you don't want to see other people suffer. But think about, well, if they're suffering, how can I get them out of that, and how can we move forward? Instead of watching it unfold and being that person on, on those shorts or videotaping someone suffering and not getting involved. Oh my God, somebody fell on the train tracks. I've seen this a million times. And everybody's looking at the person that just fell or got pushed or stabbed, instead of actually helping or calling 911 or getting someone that you can't jump down there. You're not strong enough. Okay, let's get somebody that can. What a concept. And I feel like we're doing this on a big scale. Humongous scale. So we're no longer going to be the bystanders. Everybody has a role to play, and we all have frequency and energy that we need to maintain. How do we maintain it watching the sideshow circus? And that's understanding the what beyond good and evil. It's okay. I'm acknowledging that there is this stuff. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but how does it directly affect you? Does it affect your bills? And to some component, it does. But what is it doing in your everyday life that if it's affecting you, then what are you doing to change it? I walk my walk. Are you walking yours? Are you embodying what you're holding onto so tight? If you cannot embody what you're holding onto, it's meant to be released to an extent. If you can't, if you're not there yet in your process to walk it, talk it, breathe it, and embody it, and you're further exploring, keep on going on that trip. Keep that journey going. It will happen. There are too many people speaking concepts out, but not walking authentically in the path. The messaging, people holding on to this flash of light idea, and I'm just using that. I'm not here to criticize anybody that believes in that. Please don't think I am. It's a concept. Some people will experience this flash of light. I'm not taking it away from them. But there's a lot of us who aren't meant to see it. We're meant to feel it. And it's been happening. We each and individually all will have different types of ascension. We all signed up with a contract with Source, and it's individualized to us. Yeah, we have a soul tribe that affects all of us. We ask people to play roles for us. We designed this. It's a movie. It's school. It's to gain experience in teachings. It's as simple as that. And yet we make it more complicated than it needs to be. We put too much emotional states into things. If we just took a step back and did the bird's eye view, we would see it. And the most important part is, are you going in and feeling it? When someone gives you information, you might not align with it at first. It might be something that's not ready for you to be seeded yet. Or the seed's there, but you're not ready to come up out of the soil yet. So you let it simmer and sit, which is great, because it still needs, you still need roots to ground and grow. You need a network. You're still feeding. You're in your infancy stage. But there are people who don't do this and at least check in with the head, the gut, and the heart. They don't do any of that. And it doesn't matter what order they're doing it in. They're not doing it at all. And they're just spew. Be careful who you listen to, amongst the fact that just see if you align. It's very important that you're asking yourself, does this make sense to me? Does it need to make sense to anybody else? The breakthroughs that I'm going through, I'm finding like Spirit is plucking these things out of the ether to put it on my social media, because that's how they usually get in contact with me, to give me signs that I'm on the right direction, I'm in the right path. Hearing Dolores Cannon about Earth School, but in a different type of way that I've read in her books. She was doing a lecture and someone captured a short of it. I sound just like her. It's like I channeled her. And I'm not the channel for her. Pamela Erlin is. And she watch Pamela Erlin. She's fantastic. I love her. Bashar. I know Bruce Poppy plays Bashar a lot on his channel for Mindset Mondays. This one about portals and wormholes, and like he describes it like I'm talking about it. I've never seen that, you know, like that little clip that I don't even know where I found it. I saw it somewhere and I saved it. Holy crap. Like these things are being shown to me. Obviously, it's what information I have is nothing new. We all know this. It's within us. It's now just being uncovered. It's validating for me, and it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not alone. I am making sure that I'm walking my walk authentically. They're confirming upstairs, my higher selves are confirming, yeah, you're here with a purpose, girl. You just didn't come here to have a simple life. Most of us didn't. But I chose, this is still, we're still on our virtue with Beyond Good and Evil. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this before I get into the reading. He's going to go into some very hard topics. And I want to bring in the idea of how emotionally attached you might get, which you shouldn't. Just I'll read and we'll go figure this out together. In late ages that may be proud of their humanity, so much fear remains, so much superstitious fear of the savage, cruel beast, whose conquest is the very pride of these more humane ages, that even palpable truths remain unspoken for centuries, as if by some agreement, because they look as if they might reanimate the savage beast one has finally mortified. Perhaps I dare something when I let one of these truths slip out. Let others catch it again and give it milk of the pious ways of thinking, to drink until it lies still and forgotten in its old corner. What's still lingering in our society and our humanity right now? God, Satan, Satan's God, God, Satan, evil, good. Baal, the Phoenicians, the Masons, the this, the that, the this one, and that one, and that group, and that race, and that thing, that, I could go on and on and on and on. Is it superstitious? Because you're programmed to think so. Are you seeing the fact that Satan is of God's paradigm, the all, the creator, the infinite intelligence, the monad, the energy? It's just energy in a positive way. It's negative energy. Okay, it exists, and we have it too. Take your scientific brain and your spiritual brain and combine it together, and here you go. It's going to make sense. We're in the material world, and you got to combine the material with the spiritual, and metaphysics. What are we hung up on? Are we still hung up on that book that tells us that Satan's evil? Or is it a thought form that you created that makes it evil? The power of thought is what you put out and what collectively humanity puts out. So if that's the story that we all collectively agreed upon to have play out, it's just a storyline that we agreed to play out. Does it make it real? Is this a movie? What about the movie is real? What about this world is not illusion? Dolores Cannon says it. I say it all the time. Ross says it all the time. Quo says it all the time. This is an illusion. We wrote this. We are the actors, the stars, the screenwriters, the playwriters, the backdrop people. Are you being the star of your movie? Did your act, your scene come on yet? What part of the movie are you on? Are you at the climax of your movie? Are you at the ending? Is there a happy ending? You create your reality. We collectively created stories to help us understand and learn from, to make choices. The choices are to change your reactions in your mindset, or you're going to stay in ignorance and not change your state of mind. And you could do either one. There's no right or wrong. That's what you wrote for yourself, but you get choices. So what kind of choice are you making by feeding a story that we all collectively wrote? Maybe it's time that we rewrote the story and start finalizing that outcome. You feed too much into a story, it's going to manifest. And we already fed too much of this Satan nonsense bullshit narrative for eons, lifetime cycles. I read it in Blavatsky yesterday. Karma and nemesis, you effing create it. The only judge you can do is judge yourself and have compassion for yourself and say, okay, what is it that I need to do to make a change? Because the truths that I speak are not easy to swallow. No one wants to hear that their villain is their own creation. No one wants to hear that. Or that we collectively wrote this together for experience, and to stop attaching your emotional states to things that haven't affected you. I've seen demons. I've seen the devil itself. I've seen the ugly and the worst of the entities. I've seen next level shit. And as a child, that was a test. I didn't know it at the time, and I wasn't really scared either. When I physically touch things, oh boy. But I was more curious than anything else, and I think that's what my higher self needed me to see. Like, there's nothing to be scared of. If you can stomach this, you can stomach a lot more. It's just something to think about. I know this is not an easy concept for a lot of people to just all of a sudden deprogram. But we look at other people and we look at their actions, and we, get the wood chippers out when you might be the devil in their story. You might have did something offensive. You might not perceive it that way, but they do. Remember, we interpret and perceive reality all differently. So people that are doing heinous things might have an actual justification for it. You might not agree with it, but if they're in their mind is justifiable, okay. And who are you to judge that? You see how tricky that can get? We should reconsider cruelty and open our eyes. We should at long last learn impatience lest, since immodest fat errors keep on strutting about virtuously and saucily, as have been fostered about tragedy, for example, by philosophers both ancient and modern. Almost everything we call higher culture is based on the spiritualization of cruelty, on its becoming more profound. This is my proposition, that, quote, savage animal, end quote, has not really been mortified. It lives and flourishes. It has merely become divine. That's a quote right there. What constitutes the painful voluptuousness of tragedy is cruelty. What seems agreeable in so-called tragic pity, and at bottom in everything sublime, up to the highest and most delicate shutters of metaphysics, receives its sweetness solely from the admixture of cruelty. What the Roman in the arena, the Christian in the ecstasies of the cross, the Spaniard at the auto de fe or bullfight, the Japanese of today when he flocks to tragedies, the laborer in the Parisian suburb who feels a nostalgia for bloody revolutions, the Wagnerian who submits to Tristan and Isolde, her will suspended, what all of them enjoy and seek to drink in with mysterious ardor are the spicy portions of the great soirée, cruelty. To see this, we must, of course, chase away the clumsy psychology of bygone times, which had nothing to teach about cruelty, except that it came into being at the sight of the sufferings of others. There is also an abundant, overabundant enjoyment at one's own suffering, at making oneself suffer. And whatever man allows himself to be persuaded to self-denial in the religious sense, or to self-mutilation, as among Phoenicians, anesthetics, or altogether to decentralize, decardinalize, contrition, puritanical spasms of penitence, sections of consciousness. He is secretly lured and pushed forward by his cruelty, by those dangerous thrills of cruelty turned against on oneself. Finally, consider that even that seeker, often knowledge forces his spirit to recognize things against the inclination of the spirit, and often enough also against the wishes of his heart, by way of saying no where he would like to say yes, love, and adore, and thus acts as an artist and a transfigurer of cruelty. Indeed, any instance on profundity and thoroughness is a violation. A desire to hurt the basic will of the spirit will unceasingly strives for the apparent and superficial, in all desire to know there is a drop of cruelty. You are the one that chooses your suffering. You're the one who projects it out where it comes back. You create it because you're thinking about it. You analyze it. We look at torture and we look at the heinous things that people have done. But if you were in their shoes and step into an empathic role, if you step in unobjectively, no bias, and step into, let's say, Albert Fish, a sadist. You step in as an empath with no feeling, no bias toward, you're just checking the aura out, you're checking the situation out. If you tapped into the thinking of that person, Albert Fish, he actually enjoys his suffering. He gets off on his suffering. Now, as society as a whole, we find those things moralistically wrong. But in that one being's mind, he finds joy in it and happiness. We create our own suffering. And then we project what is right or wrong on other people. We have moral standards in humanity, right? But not all standards are equal, and not all feelings and all people's actions are equal. I'm watching that play out right now as a bystander in my life. I'm seeing how the system is pretty screwed. We're watching a system crumble before us, but we're also having to understand that you need to step outside of your understanding and need to be an empath to step into someone else's shoes unbiasedly. So you can't walk in and go, oh, that's a murderer and that person did this and that and the other thing. You have to objectively jump into somebody to say, okay, what is their mindset? Does this actually make them happy? Like, feel the feeling of happiness, like you getting a kitten and holding that kitten and that unconditional love and that feeling. They might get the same feeling for some heinous shit. Now, does that make them wrong if they're getting that feeling from that? That's what they wrote in their script. They might be repulsed that you love kittens. Does it make them wrong? There are people who like dogs and there are people who like cats, some strongly over others. Does that make anybody wrong? It's your perception. It's your viewpoint individually. And altogether, we collectively come together to make a societal understanding of morals. Besides natural law, going intricate. But how do we judge other people when that's God having an experience through them? And it only helps us to better understand other people when we could sit back as an observer, as an empath. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be an empath. It is not an easy job to be one. But if you, as an empath, jump into someone else's situation, not saying like take your light body and implant it in somebody. No, no, no. What I'm saying is observe. What's that person's mindset? What is making them happy? It might be completely opposite of everything you are as a being, but understanding what makes someone tick, whether right or wrong, it doesn't matter. What matters is you had that understanding. Your perception changes towards another person, another self, when you can comprehend that sometimes what we consider cruel is not cruel to somebody else. These are baseline things of understanding. It's just like the four-letter word love. Everybody interprets that emotional state, that frequency and vibratory state differently. We're all at different frequencies and stages of understanding and awareness. When we can really embody that and walk it, we start judging people less. We give more compassion to others and a better understanding. And yes, they can be wrong. You can find what they did wrong or what they're saying wrong, but you have more of a compassionate state and not a hate state. Because people who do horrible things can justify their actions. They might feel that they're in the right. It's a perception. You might do something right into someone it's wrong. Things could be flipped. I knew I was going to do that too. Finally, consider that even the seeker after knowledge forces his spirit to recognize things against the inclination of the spirit, and often enough also against the wishes of his heart. In all desire to know, there is a drop of cruelty. What I have just said of a basic will of spirit may not be readily understood. Permit me to explain. That commanding something, which the people call the spirit, wants to be master in and around its own house and wants to feel that it is a master. It has the will from multiplicity to simplicity, a will that ties up, tames, and is domineering and truly masterful. It needs and capacities are so far the same as those physiologists pose it for everything that lives, grows, and multiplies. The spirit's power to appropriate the foreign stands reveal in its inclination to assimilate the new to the old, to simplify the manifold, and to overlook or repulse whatever is totally contradictory. Just as it is involuntarily emphasizes certain features and lines in what is foreign in every piece of the external world, retouching and falsifying the whole to suit itself. Its intent in all this is to incorporate new experiences, to file new things in old files, growth, in a word, or more precisely, the feeling of growth, the feeling of increased power. An apparently opposite drive serves the same will. A suddenly erupting decision in favor of ignorance, of deliberate exclusion, a shutting of one's windows, an eternal no to this or that thing, a refusal to let things approach, a kind of state of defense against much that is knowable, a satisfaction with the dark, with the limiting horizon, a yeah and an amen to ignorance, all of which is necessary in proportion to a spirit's power to appropriate its digestive capacity. To speak metaphorically and actually, the spirit is relatively most similar to a stomach. Here belongs also the occasional will of the spirit to let itself be deceived, perhaps with a capricious imitation of the fact that such and such is not the case, that one merely accepts such and such a delight in all uncertainty and ambiguity, a jubilant self-enjoyment, in the arbitrary narrowness and secrecy of some nook, in all too near in the foreground, in what is enlarged, diminished, displaced, beautified, a self-enjoyment. In the caprice of all these expressions of power. Here belongs also finally that by no means unproblematic readiness of the spirit to deceive other spirits and to dissimulate in front of them the continual urge and surge of a creative form-giving, unchangeable force. In this, the spirit enjoys the multiplicity and craftiness of its masks. It also enjoys the feeling of the security behind them. After all, it is surely its protean arts that defend and conceal it best. This will to mere appearance, to simplification, to mask, to cloak, in short, to the surface, for every surface is a cloak, is countered by the sublime inclination of the seeker after knowledge, who insists on profundity, multiplicity, and thoroughness, with a will which is a kind of cruelty of the intellectual conscience and taste. Every courageous thinker will recognize this in himself, assuming only that as fit he has hardened and sharpened his eyes for himself long enough, and that he is used to severe discipline as well as severe words. He will say, there is something cruel in this inclination of my spirit. Let the virtuous and kindly try to talk him out of it. Indeed. It would sound nicer if we were to say whispered, reputed to be distinguished not by cruelty, but by extravagant honesty. We free, very free spirits, and perhaps that will actually be our posthumous reputation. Meanwhile, for there is plenty of time until then, we ourselves are probably least inclined to put on the garish finery of such moral word tinsels. Our whole work so far makes us sick of this taste and its cheerful luxury. These are beautiful, glittering, juggling, festive words: honesty, love of truth, love of wisdom, sacrifice for knowledge, heroism of the truthful. They have something that swells one's pride. But we hermits and marmots have long persuaded ourselves in the full secrecy of a hermit's conscience that this worthy verbal pomp, too, belongs to the old mendacious pomp, junk and gold dust of unconscious human vanity, and that under such flattering colors and makeup, as well the basic text of Homo Natura must again be recognized. I'm going to pause right there for a lot of people criticize me that I'm too harsh in some of my videos, that I do preach love and light, and I do preach being neutral and finding positivity in things, but I come into a real analytical sense of reality. We're still here in the third dimensional space, up fourth. Some of us are four, congratulations. But I'm going to tell you how it is in the most loving, unconditional way. Tough love. I'm not sugarcoating shit. There's no sparkle farts with glitter and perfume puffs sprinkling around. What I'm saying in a lot of my spiritual soul advices or ponderings or just in general is things that people can't stomach. Because when you tell somebody that hating other people is not the best idea, and why are you spewing hate and wanting to kill things because they did wrong and heinous stuff in your perception? Well, I'm the evil person for telling you that that's your other self, and you got to acknowledge that's still God having an experience as God's having an experience through you. Does everything you do in your daily life righteous? Are you walking the righteous path? Are you cheating people? Are you, what are the flaws that you have? Because other people might find what you do horrible. Take that and understand it, understand it. You're going to do you, boo, regardless, right? So if those people are doing them, what is your lesson to take from? What is the learning here? That's what I want to impart on people. We go on others' bandwagons because they're telling you their own perception and projection of what they feel, and you hang on tight. You don't let go, and you don't allow other perceptions to at least hit your consciousness for you to think about, to expand upon. You might not agree with it, but see if it even fits anywhere. But a lot of people are not even allowing that information to sit here, to even be absorbed a little bit, to expand. That's why I don't sit here and, oh my God, everything is just beautiful. It's sparkly and glistening. It's so great. I'm not doing that because that's not really me. I tell it how it is in a raw fashion. It's coming out of me in love, with the frequency of love. But I'm telling it to you in a way that best suits the realisticness of my words. I'm not here to fancify shit. This is not an easy and tough concept to even grasp. But you gotta look at a metaphysical perception that we all perceive the world differently, and we all feel and interpret and experience the world differently. We all chose our stories. We chose what movie and what actors are going to be in our movie. And there was a lot of similarities, and then there's not. When you grasp and walk in this understanding, you tend to stop looking at your other selves and wanting them to go in a wood chipper. And the more that you don't feed into that energy, the more you understand its all source. And that, yeah, you're acknowledging it exists, but you're not feeding it energy anymore for it to continuously manifest their reality, the better off you're going to be. Because you're just feeding intention and emotional states. When you feel that about someone else, that you want them, I'm trying to hone in other people on different concepts on this. It's all about going in and doing the work on yourself. That's what pretty much higher selves say upstairs. We all perceive. We're all here physically. And we know when we do our flaws and we make wrong moves in our life, it's for a reason. It's to learn from. And it's up to us, so that we're not spreading the suffering, to transmute the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment. Knowing that you can own up to your wrong and make it right. And if not, at least release it. Everybody's going to perceive your wrong, that you feel that you did wrong, differently. It's interpretation. You create your own suffering. The cruelty that is exuded in you is the negative polarity. You have a means to stop it. No one else. You're in control of your reality. And coming into a common realistic sense, when you stop judging others and only worrying about what you are putting out there in the world, you'll be way better for it. You give no energy to these things, to the other aspects of source, your other selves that are feeding the negativity, and you're putting and depositing the positive, and you're going to expend it out this way. Understanding these concepts that Nietzsche brings out is mind-blowing. And it's true. There are people out there spewing beautiful positivity with the wrong effing intentions. People spew, oh, this is great. This product is fantastic. I got my hair color back. I feel like $1,000,000. Look at me. Right? Do they really believe what they're saying, or are they selling you a pipe dream? I'm not saying all products, I'm just giving an example. Too many people also are hanging on to other people. Hang on to yourself. That applies to me. When I'm listening to Dolores Cannon's conventional work, when I'm listening to Brian Scott read Ra and Quo, when I'm listening to Bashar and other people who are amazing channels, I'm open-minded to what they are giving me. I might actually listen to their words 100 times to see actually what sinks in with me and what aligns with me. I give a lot of things chances, and there are things that some of them say that I don't agree with, that doesn't align with me, but I actually had the ears to hear it and to actually give it a chance. What's happening in society right now is that we want to hear what's the best, what is helping. Do you really know if it's helping? Marketers do this all the time. They'll have a million people out there. Oh, I'll give you like 20 bucks. Can you write a review? I'm not saying every product and everything, but we're in consumerism. We're in the we got to take you at face value. And a lot of people are getting scammed. What is it really about? Is it the message or is it the money? Really think about that. Yes, people do need to eat and people do need to live. But if they're not walking their authentic self and they're not helping humanity and they're not going out and doing and being a part of the community, so they're talking fanciful words and being all pumped and sparkle farts with perfume and glitter and everything is quantum and this is the next level. Nothing is next level. It's a dimension and density that you frequent at. Raise your frequency and you'll start seeing it. You don't need anything to raise your frequency. You need your state of mind to change to raise your frequency. I had this conversation earlier with a beautiful soul. Everybody's telling you to do this, that, and the other thing. And then if you don't, your pineal gland is calcified. Oh my God, you're not going to reach ascension. I said it in a very earlier video. Unless someone takes a CAT scan or an image of my brain to show me that my pineal gland is calcified, how the fuck can someone tell me that it is? How do I have the abilities that I do? How can I be so opened to getting this channeled and getting this information and knowing it since I was a little kid, and they killed my mouth with fluoride? I'm not saying that my pineal gland might not be calcified. I'm just saying there is no way to know unless you had a scan. There's tangible evidence to show me that I have a calcified pineal gland. Do you see how marketing works? There are very few people out there authentically selling things. They're authentically giving you the right information. The spiritual people out there that are telling you about the flashes of light, are they really feeling it and explaining it to you in such a way, not to give you fear, but for something to be embraced? because I'm seeing more and more channels and more people coming out with some crazy concepts, which is fine, and that's their interpretation and perception, but are they just speaking it to make likes, or are they speaking it from the heart space and meaning it? That's why I don't talk fancifully. That's why I'm being as raw and as my authentic self as possible. They agree. And it's because I want people to realize not everything out there that sounds great, feels great, is great. And all the things out there that feel wrong and might be wrong, not all the time is wrong. If you understand perception, be objective. Take it in. To translate man back into nature, to become master over the many vain and overly enthusiastic interpretations and connotations that have so far been scrawled and painted over that eternal basic text of Homo Natura, to see it, that man henceforth stands before man as even today, hardened in this discipline of science. He stands before the rest of nature with intrepid Oedipus eyes and seal Odysseus's ears, deaf to the siren songs of old metaphysical bird catchers who've been piping at him all too long. You are more, you are higher, you are of a different origin. That you may be a strange and insane task, but it is a task who would deny that? Why did we choose this insane task? Or putting it differently, why have knowledge at all? Everybody will ask us that, and we press this way. We would have to put the same question to ourselves 100 times. We have found no better answer. Learning changes us. It does what all nourishment does, which also does not merely preserve, as physiologists know. But at the bottom of us, really deep down, there is, of course, something unteachable, some granite of spiritual fathom, of predetermined decision and answer to predetermined selected questions. Whenever a cardinal problem is at stake, there speaks an unchangeable "this is I" about women and men. For example, a thinker cannot relearn, but only finish learning, only discover ultimately how this is settled in him. At times we find certain solutions of problems that inspire strong faith in us. Some call them henceforth their convictions. Later, we see them only as steps to self-knowledge, signposts to the problem we are, rather to the great stupidity we are, to our spiritual fathom, to what is unteachable, very deep down. After this abundant civility that I have just evidenced in realization to myself, I shall perhaps be permitted more readily to state a few truths about women as such. He hates women. Assuming that it is now known from the onset how very much these are, after all, my truths. I'm not going to read the part about women. He has a very profoundness, but that's also the beautiful thing of looking back at some of these writers and philosophers and perceivers of reality. They're only being influenced by what is surrounding them in humanity. And back when Nietzsche was alive, women were treated like shit. They were perceived as just toys, not having any kind of hold on humanity. Now, can we blame him for that perception? That was a program. That stinky program. And that's what we all need to do right now. As we see, if you read this book, there's, and a lot of his other books have some very degrading things to say about women. But is that a program that he was indoctrinated with, that he needed to undo the coding? As we're going to learn, as we shift our thinking and ourselves into higher truths and awareness of consciousness, you're going to look back on this time and you're going to realize how we were perceiving people, places, races, things, languages, how we were looking upon them. Not necessarily down, not necessarily up, but just in a generalized sense. We're going to look back at these times, like I'm looking back at his time and going, holy crap, what were we thinking? What? You know, as your awareness expands, so does the truth and so does your perception. I just think that's really funny that we would most likely do the same thing I'm doing now to this book. They're like, oh, Nietzsche, you got it wrong about women. But we will look back in maybe 50 years and look at this time and go, oh, crap, what were we thinking? And I hope we do have that opportunity because we'll have a good laugh at it at least. I'm sure he's laughing at himself. Like, what did I think of that of women? It's the program. Now think about your operating system. This guy. I'm going to put this down for today. Next time, we're going to go over peoples and fatherlands. There's a lot that he says that I'm going to read this one part, but I'm going to skip. I was going to put it to an end, but there's something that jumped out. In no age has the weaker sex been treated with as much respect by men as in ours. That belongs to the democratic inclination and basic taste. Just like disrespectfulness for old age. No wonder that this respect is immediately abused. One wants more, one learns to demand. Finally, one almost finds this tribute of respect insulting. One would prefer competition for rights, indeed given a genuine fight. We look at this, and if we put it into our society now, we're dealing with source, having an experience through people that we might not morally agree with their choosing of how they represent themselves. We have people who moralistically do some heinous things. We have people that are confused about their identity. We have souls who incarnated in the wrong sex. That does happen. This was explained to me by multiple mediums who have read spirit and asked, like, why were you gay? Why were you a lesbian? And they said, A, for teaching of compassion for the people around them, and that their soul happened to be the other polarity, and they zapped into, their opportunity to present itself to incarnate was a short-lived experience, and they needed to jump into any vehicle that was available, and oops. But nothing ever happens by an oops. Everything has a purpose and serves a purpose. We need to shed that program that we've been indoctrinated in. As much as this earth and Gaia needs reproduction of selves, it happens all the time. All serves a purpose, all has a purpose, whether you agree with it or not. It's an unfoldment. So when you stop and really think about the program and the indoctrination that you've been fed, understanding, you don't need to agree with it. If children want to identify as cats and dogs, I don't agree with that. I think that's silly. But in the same breath, what's the program? And what is it trying to teach us? We're in that time, and we're at an age where we're questioning genders, and we are questioning people's identities. We have to understand what the program and encoding is for that. Why are these people expressing these things? What is the learning and the understanding to this? You don't, again, need to understand in terms of agreeing or disagreeing with the understanding and teaching. What is a lesson? Is it to teach you how to be more compassionate towards something or somebody? Most likely. Is it to understand that we're born in perfection, but there is imperfections that do occur, and there is illnesses and diseases and parasites that are here to help us see a clearer picture of a program. It's up to us, humanity, to rewrite that script and that program and to get back to basics. But this is just a test. This is just school. That's all it is. And we need to look at each individual soul to see whys, the whys, the whats, the whos, the what, It's okay to have perception. It's okay to interpret. But what's the program behind it? What is the teaching we're being given? As much as I don't agree with some people's choices and how they live or how they express themselves, because it does cause some danger, in my estimation, in my perception, it does. For them, it doesn't. How do we get along with the lesson? How do we deprogram this from not moving forward? Can we have acceptance for all? Or is that another program that we really need to examine? He brings some really good points up besides the women shit. And it's why I'm looking at this book as a springboard to what is going on in our world right now, and what is the perceptions and changes we need to make, and what do we want moving forward. It's what is right, what is for us in humanity as a whole, taking it all into consideration, not just what you think, what we collectively all want. How do we take what is right, or what our perception of right is, and start forming the new creatively? Just because your frequency is higher and someone's is lower, and their interpretation and their estimation is of a lower conscious form, doesn't mean that they're not coming along with us. They are. Are you going to be compassionate towards them? Are you going to show them the way? Are you going to blast them out and want them in the wood chipper? I'm only using that because a lot of people that watch me know what that is. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We got to stop and really start analyzing and thinking about the program, the motherboard. What operating system are we choosing for the next ride? What holographic simulated matrix are we going to play in next? Or do you have to do it again in another third density form because you couldn't shed the programming and upgrade the new operating system? Because you held too many deep down hard programs to shed. And you saw the hate and disgust and fed it instead of giving it love, unconditional, and compassion. Remember, Yeshua walked around and said, "For they know not." Read Pistis Sophia. I read it on this channel. Where are you elevating yourself to? Where are you holding yourself back? Remember to follow your heart. No one else's heart is going to dictate to you how to move forward. Only yours alone. There's only a couple of us out there who are authentically trying to seed humanity. We want to move forward. What's in the way? What is physically stopping all of us from obtaining the abundance and the beauty of a new world? What is stopping? What's the block? Where is it in the chakra? Are we waiting for a certain somebody to initiate shit, or are you creating your own reality? Because I know I'm creating my own reality and I couldn't be happier for it. Yeah, things do, life happens, shit happens. It's how we deal with this shit that makes all the difference. So are you dealing with this shit in a, or are you just breathing through it and transmuting your situation? It's up to you. But we need to see beyond good and evil. You need to look at both sides. You need to, if you're an empath, you know how to do this, to actually walk in another's shoes to see what is going on. And it's harder for somebody that isn't an empath to even understand that. But how would you feel if that happened to you? If you were that person, if that situation happened to you, do you know the full extent of the story, or are you only getting a snapshot of what is being said? These are the things that you need to start looking at and understanding the program and the indoctrination within you that still needs to shed. We all have it. Let's look beyond it and go into neutrality. Get the emotional attachments out of things so that you have a clearer picture and a better choice to make. And again, it's still your choice to make how you're going to react and how you're going to go about your everyday life. But unless it directly affects you, really think what you're feeding and how you're going about your day. If you're allowing outside stimulus and stuff that really doesn't affect you, and you're letting it consume you, it's a distraction from yourself. Do the work. Because there's a beautiful road, and many, many people tell me that they're starting to see it. They're getting glimpses, they're getting their snapshots of the next world. They're having experiences, they're feeling it. They're seeing it with these eyes. They're seeing it with their physical body. They're experiencing 5D. They're experiencing 4. They're seeing the beautiful things that is to come. But it's a fleeting moment. It doesn't last all day. It's little previews. And I know a lot of people are starting to see them. And that's great. That's where we need to feed. What does that look like for you? Have you had your experiences? Have you got those snapshots? Or felt those moments? Or like, oh shit, my time changed. Now think, when you had those experiences, if you have, were you fearful? Were you happy? What state of consciousness were you in? Only you can answer that. But just think about it. Were you thinking about good and evil? Were you in duality? Or were you in unity? Did you feel at one with that snapshot? Did you feel happy? Did you feel calm? That's the states that we need to frequent more often in. Not worrying about dual. Yeah, we still live in dual and we still have to live our lives. But it's growing into that next stage that we need to keep pushing forward into for it to come into manifestation and into our reality. So look beyond good and evil. And ask yourselves the next time you're judging everything I said earlier, take the opposite approach and see it and flip it and turn it. And you'll be better to doing it that way before you put a judgment and a label and a criticism. And you can have your hatred all day long. But what is that doing for you? Just think about it. Sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, protection, energy, shielding. Go within. Be the lighthouse. Seed. We need all of you. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you for your support. I love all of you very much. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye for now.